Hello everybody, this is Dan from Screaming Donkey Woodwork, and today I'm going to show you how to lose $1,000 by making a wooden box in your garage. Well, shit. Alright, so I had this beautiful piece of walnut just kind of laying around my shop. It was the end cut off of some other table that I made at some point. And I had a client, and we'll just call him Charles. And since he was in charge of the project, we're going to go with Charles in charge of our days and our nights. Oh my God, that's the first time I've heard myself singing and sexy, right? Am I right? Sexy? Gonna have to find more excuses to do that. Well, Charles wanted me to make a box for his girlfriend, Noelle. Ironically, she was not the first Noelle he dated. The first Noelle was a mean bitch. And he wanted something a little bit different, so this time his Noelle was a Sassy Wench. And this is her pirate-themed store that she runs at a Renaissance fair. So if you find yourself in Phoenix, Arizona, and you want to go to a Renaissance fair, go check out Noelle at the Sassy Wench. You won't get a discount if you say the donkey sent you, but she will tell you to get the fuck out. You know, because she's sassy. And here we have my first screw up as I tried to cut through a 2.5-inch walnut slab in one go. My Delta table saw is comically underpowered for this 2.5-inch slab, even with a thin cut perf blade on there. Is that right? That didn't sound right. What the hell, we're rolling with it. And this thing gripped onto my blade like it had Dakota Johnson level daddy issues.
Yes, sir, big day.
Whoop, that scared the shit out of me. So there definitely was an awful lot of tension built up in this wood. So when I did the crosscut, I just went back and forth a few times. And what that did was allow the kerf to close a little bit. And then when I'd pass it again, it would open back up. I knew I was going to have to let this wood settle a little while. Because anytime you know you have that much tension in the wood, you know, after you cut it, it's going to warp a little bit. So it's best not to mill it completely down right after you cut it and it has a bunch of tension in it. And looking at this after the fact, it probably would have been smart also to have the leveling board on the other side of the sled there, because the wood hanging over definitely would have caused some additional tension. But as you can see in the top left-hand corner, it is just so far away I didn't want to reach and grab it. Epic music for an epic battle with wood with a bunch of tension in it. All right, right before I left the shop, I asked Becca to sticker the wood so that it had time to dry. You just have to watch this. This is sped up 6 times. At this point, 10 minutes has passed. If you ever wonder what real OCD looks like, you are witnessing it right here. And if I keep it at 6 times speed, we will be watching this all day long. So I'm going to go ahead and jump to 20 times speed. If you want to know why it costs so much for me to make a box, this is part of the reason right here, folks. This is a horrible trait to have in anybody in your shop when they're stickering things, but a fantastic quality to have in people when they are cleaning up the wood. I shit you not, this was 33 minutes. All right, this next part may look a little OCD, but it actually isn't. It's a necessity. So what we're going to do is make a wooden hinge. And for that wooden hinge to look right, all the wood grain needs to line up. For the wood grain to line up, we actually have to number each one of the pieces as we cut it off the dowel. And not only do we have to number it, we have to know which one is which. So which end is the right end. All right, I'm already bored. Let's speed it up. You know why I like this music? It reminds me of the intro to The New Pope where those nuns are all dancing around. I have a thing for dancing nuns. So what you see me doing here is drilling out the holes for the brass rod, and sometimes, just sometimes, the hole is a little bit tight for the brass rod to fit in because the drill bit is exactly the same size. So what I do is I just grab it and I jam that sucker on there, rub it up and down a little bit, and what do you know, that hole gets just a little bigger. After this wood had a little bit of time to dry, I went ahead and remilled them, and well, I actually milled them for the first time all the way. I hit them with the planer. I actually let them dry another day, and then I came back and I milled the edges down using my CNC machine and glued them together. I didn't show that part because literally we trained a monkey to glue two pieces of wood together, and he does not like to be filmed. I just watched this rant this other day from this woman talking about how easy it is to put a river table together, and that jointery, flat, smooth joinery is so hard to do. Not if you have a CNC, lady. It's super easy. You know what else makes it easy? A $10,000 joiner. She said she would be so much more impressed by showing her a joint where you can see the seam. Well, you can't see the seam in this one at all, and it's mirror imaged pieces of walnut. Highly figured, I might add, and I didn't show it because it was too simple to show, or I lost the footage. I might have lost the footage too. Yes, some epoxy art sucks. And I'll be the first to admit, even some of the stuff that I make sucks. But why you gotta crap on my art? Because it sells for more? My advice is get better at what you're doing, make more interesting stuff, and it'll sell for more. Don't worry about what other people are selling their stuff for. That CNC machine is a $15,000 investment, and I can't even tell you how many hours I spent learning how to use it properly. I still don't know everything, and I still screw things up. Watch it. Just keep watching. You'll get to see me screw something up soon. My first CNC was held together with spit and duct tape, and it cost $2,000, and I had to keep putting it back together. So if you are wondering why I hit it with the torch first, it's because some of the fur that is stirred up by that little tiny ball nose bit ends up in places where the sander can't reach, and I have found that if you just hit them with the torch, it'll take them down enough to where they're not noticeable anymore. And there really is just a ton of sanding that goes with that. That is a flap sander, and I use that to get inside the little tiny grooves that we have. And the important thing with that is to run it in all four directions, but to finish in the direction of the grain of the wood. I've found that this is much easier to do while it's still dogged down to the table, and that way everything just holds nice and still when I hit it with the chisel and hit it with the sander. There's always some touch-up work to do afterward that you didn't see from a different direction, but I feel like this is the best way to get like the good 85% of it. So remember I told you that you would see a screw up here? Well, those little anchors weren't getting down deep enough, so I was lowering it about a millimeter at a time once I saw the anchors cut, and then restarting the pattern. So this freaking took forever. And then I was moving it to the center so I could lower the blade down and re-zero it a little bit. And I accidentally hit the jog button, and I had the jog set to 1 inch, and it drilled a little hole in the art. So now there is a moon in our scene, and my wife hated it, and she kept telling me to fill it in. But for whatever reason, it would have taken all of 3 minutes, and we had the stuff out to do it. I could have definitely done it. For whatever reason, I really became attached to that hole and left it just as it was. And I said, that's my moon. I had a similar screw up on the bench that I did for Kenny Reed. And when I went back and looked at it, it looked intentional, like I meant to do it. I knew it was a screw up, but it did not make the piece any less beautiful. I knew there was going to be a bunch of wormholes that I left in this wood intentionally, so I figured like one more hole would not be that bad. It took me so long to get comfortable with the fact that I could never make anything perfect in the wood shop. It took me 40 years to get it into finished woodwork because I hated the fact that I could not get it perfect. I don't know if this is an overreach or not, but I have become comfortable sending out things that I mess up that I know I could fix. A screw up that you can fix is often a happy accident, something that turns out nice when you look at it and you're like, okay, I could change that if I wanted to. But a screw up that you don't know how to fix that you're sending out is just kind of a screw up that is a blemish. All right, here I'm sizing everything up just to make sure it's slightly smaller than the cash box. That way I can carve down into the cash box and make a little lip so it will sit perfectly flush. cutting the edges off using alignment is so much easier. Of course, the buyer wanted some epoxy because that's kind of what I'm known for. As always, we're using Wisebond tabletop epoxy. You know, because we don't want it to chip out while we're flattening. I don't recommend using a thin kerf blade when you're trying to make a groove unless you like nudging the board over a 1/16 of an inch every time. All right, so we got it all in there. We got it just slightly smaller than our cash drawer. Got that groove put in there so we could put the bottom in. So it's perfect. So now we just got to put the top groove in so we can put the top of the box on. You know what's nice? Going to the garage, cutting up some wood, turning it into little bitty pieces. Taking that wood, gluing it up, and turning it into something beautiful. It's cathartic. It makes you feel good. It's a little exercise. All right, so this is a completely new technique for me. It's not some big epiphany, but it is pretty cool. Instead of cutting all the way through the box, I just cut most of the way through the box, and what that does is allow me to cut through the box a little more safely, and then in the end I could just finish it up with a Japanese pull saw. It's got a beautiful noise when you play it on fast speed. When you do it slowly though, it sounded horrible. I saw that last one on YouTube. I wish I remember who it was. I would totally give him credit. I'm sorry to whoever I'm not giving credit to. Although this technique is by me, and don't do it because it's stupid. You should actually do this on a routing table. There was just making the little lip for the cash box, and you could see that there was a little bit of tear out, but it's the inside of the box. Nobody's going to care. Then we just add a whole bunch of brass, and it's these brass screws. They're not too thick. They're only like 1/4 inch thick. The wood itself was about a 1/2 inch thick. So we had to drill into the wood a little bit to make some room for the posts so that they could connect to the screws and attach our leather straps. And then I put another strap on. I said strap on. I put another leather strap on. No, wait, there's no way to get around saying it, is there? So, yeah, okay, I put another leather strap on the front of the box to close the box, which we would use a old school button hole, something or other to keep it closed. And switching it to leather strap on doesn't really make it any better, does it? After that, we get a good little preview of how this is going to turn out. All right, going with it now. We put some leather strap-ons on this pretty little box to see how it got turned. Oh, that didn't sound good, but the box is pretty. Like creepy old Joe Zimmerman.
You like popsicles?
Maybe I should just kind of shut up here for the rest of the sanding and finishing and putting those corner pieces on. $80, $150, $240. Then a water I'm impatient, so I use air to dry it. Lots of hand sanding. I would just dip and wipe.
Okay, that was my next question.
And then it's going to be getting it out of the cracks. That's going to be kind of tricky.
Paintbrush.
This is the hard wax oil. She's using a non-abrasive pad to rub it all in. The paintbrush is to get in all the nooks and crannies. After about 10 minutes, we have to remove all of the hard wax. This is super tedious. And this is where Becca's OCD definitely pays off. All right, so remember all that time we spent making wooden hinges? Well, now we can't use them. I made a mistake that you'll see up here shortly, so I'm going to use brass piano hinges. And what I wanted to do was age them, so I bought some brass aging solution. And it didn't work, and I had to figure out why. And there you can see why we can't put in the wooden hinge, because it would go right along a line of epoxy, and there's no really good way to make it stick. Unless I used epoxy, which would make a line between the wood hinge, and it just would have looked all bad and weird. So we decided against it and decided to go ahead and use the brass piano hinges, but wanted to make them look a little aged. Used a little super glue to hold them in place there, because the screws going into the epoxy isn't the most trustworthy. So just shove some super glue down in there, put the screws in behind it, and left them in place once we had them falsely aged. The reason they wouldn't age is because they had this like thin layer of, I guess it would be varnish on there. So had to sand and use a file to get all the varnish off so we can get them to get that aged appearance. So as much as I didn't want to pivot, I just knew it was the right thing here. So we're rounding the final bend, and we're going to go ahead and put some brass corner protectors on there. And I found these pre-aged. They were on Amazon, and they got little anchors on them. I thought they were really cool, and they matched the project very well. And we find out that it's called hardwood for a reason. It's super hard, and realistically, if I would have kept at this, I would have ended up chipping out a bunch of the wood. It would have broken trying to nail those in there. So I did grab a drill, pre-drilled the holes like 85% of the way, and then used a hammer to tap them in the last little bit so they would have a bit of a friction grab. Not the Dakota Johnson levels we saw before, but definitely enough to hold the nails in. It's starting to sound like I hate Dakota Johnson. I really don't, but her dad is Don Johnson, and he was Big Daddy in Django, and she needs to remember that forever. Like every card, Father's Day card, birthday card, should be to Big Daddy. All right, so here I'm putting in some leather straps on some more. I'm putting more straps on. Straps on. Straps on. There we go. Now I'm not saying it. And these straps are just to keep the box from opening too far and folding over. At this point, I can really only do it by eye. I can't do it with a measurement. I don't know. I'm sure there's a way to do it with like a paper template that makes you better at it. It's pretty hard to do. Yeah, I'm positive there's a better way for newbies to do this. I'm sure if you YouTube it, you'll be able to find it. But I've done so many of them now, I kind of know where it feels right. But I screwed so many of them up trying to do it with templates and stuff that I just started doing it by eye, and it seems to work out better. And you know what? After saying all that, this time, it turned out perfect. I think the first time I tried to use a protractor to do it. a quarter inch too far one way and the box will just flop open. The other thing that happens is the leather straps there, you need to push them in immediately and kind of leave the box closed because you need to start training that leather to rest on the inside of the box as opposed to the outside of the box. And that's pretty much it. The rest of me is just putting the leather strap on. Here we said it again. After this, Becca did put a nano coat on there, but she totally forgot to film it, so we don't have what the finished product looks like. And I didn't do any glamour shots. So if you like what you see, please consider subscribing and go ahead and check out some of the other videos that we have here where I actually did glamour shots at the end. Oh yeah, I forgot to circle back to the lose $1,000 thing. I shipped it to the wrong address. Clickbait circle closed. The customer loved it and actually said they're going to buy another one and have me design something totally new for them. The epoxy for this project was provided by Wisebond, and it is the Wisebond tabletop epoxy. The piano hinges came from your mama's house. Special thanks to Charles in Charge, LaFonda, Noel, and Scott Baio. Get weird with wood.
Like so, and spill your change all over the place.